Hello crafty friends, welcome to day 26 of Die Cut December 2024. Today I'll be using these dies to create, I know it's a bit early, a Valentine's card because we're on the V's now in our A to Z of themes and occasions. I'll also be following this sketch. Feel free to take a screenshot now if you'd like to keep a copy for yourself. To get going, I used the cover plate die to die cut out a white frame and the associated squares, stitch squares that came from the frame. I then used some low tack post-it tape to tape it to the front of my card blank to help me get my squares lined up. To glue these down, I used matte gel medium. I ummed and ahed between high tack PVA, which is more tacky as the name suggests, and matte gel medium. I decided on matte gel medium because I didn't want my squares to stick down too quickly in case I needed to wiggle them about. And also matte gel medium dries matte, so if any seeped out from under the squares I wouldn't get any glossy smears on my card front. The downside of matte gel medium is that because it's not so tacky, it's easy to knock things and move things when you're working with them. It doesn't kind of hold them strongly in place until it's properly dry. With all that in mind, I merrily put squares in the top 9 apertures in the die cut, and then I gently, carefully peeled off the frame. And this was because I wanted to leave a little gap to stamp my sentiment in before I put the bottom 3 squares in. Once I was sure the top 9 squares were all nice and lined up properly, I pressed them down firmly with a bit of non-stick paper just to make sure that they were in good contact with the card blank. I then shuffled my frame down, held it in place again with some low tack tape, and then used matte gel medium to glue in the bottom 3 squares. Again, I carefully removed the frame and pressed everything down with some non-stick paper. I do like a white on white card. I'm going to add some colour in a minute, but there's something really elegant, I think, about white on white. You could definitely colour your squares, bright colours or pastel colours, whatever, if you wanted a bit more colour and contrast on your card. Speaking of colour and contrast, I decided to use a blue and a gold on this. So I pulled out my big marble stamp and I stamped that in embossing ink on a scrap bit of smooth white card. I used my mucky ink pad for this. This has just got some accidental black ink on it, but it does come in handy when I'm doing heat embossing with an opaque powder, because when I stamp it, it looks grey on the white card and it's just that little bit easier to see that I've stamped well or not, as the case may be. And when you use an opaque powder like gold, that grey ink is not visible once the heat embossing has been done. After I'd finally got a good impression with my stamp, I sprinkled on some gold embossing powder, as I said, and then I heated that with my heat tool. To add my blue colour, I decided to smush on some Distress Oxide in Uncharted Mariner. If you want to know how to make and use a smusher, I have an instructional video and a whole playlist of cards made using a smusher. So I will link that up in the eye and down in the video description. All I did was put my Distress Oxide on my glass mat, squirt on a little bit of water to turn it into a paint. I picked it up with my smusher and smushed it on. I had plenty of ink left over and I didn't want to waste that, so I smushed some on a scrap bit of paper too. To dry my panel, I rolled over some paper towel to pick up excess ink and then I gave it a good blast with my hairdryer. I then die cut from it using a little heart die, and I cut 12 hearts, capturing blue and gold on every heart so that I could add them to the squares on my card. Again, I went for matte gel medium, so if any squirted out from underneath the hearts, it wouldn't show up. I thought the simplest approach to this would be to put a decent blob of matte gel medium in the middle of every square and then place the hearts on the matte gel medium. and that seems to have worked fine. Again, it gave me a little bit of time to wiggle my hearts into straight lines and to make sure they were straight on the squares. For my sentiment, I chose a Be My Valentines stamp from Clearly Besotted, and I stamped it in the gap that I left between the bottom two rows of squares. And I used the Uncharted Mariner for this to keep the colour scheme monochromatic. I never think of gold as a colour as such, really. It's more of a neutral in my mind. So this is a blue card with a gold accent. So it's still kind of monochromatic. Anyway, that was the last thing I needed to do to my card, and it was all done. So I hope you've enjoyed today's video, and it's given you some ideas of things you can do with your cover plate dies and your texture stamps and your little dies like hearts. If it has, do let me know in the comments. Leave a thumbs up, subscribe, ring that notification bell, and I'll see you back here tomorrow for day 27 of Die Cut December. Not long left now. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.